You lived an entire life before the age of 3. You were born into this world screaming. You opened your eyes for the very first time. You felt hunger. You felt warmth. You felt fear. You took your first steps. You said your first word, and you remember absolutely none of it. Not one single moment. Most people hear that and think, yeah, I was just too young. My brain wasn't developed enough. But that's wrong. And the real answer is so much darker than that, because your baby brain wasn't failing to record your life. It was recording everything, every face, every sound, every feeling. Your memories were there. Something destroyed them. In the 1980s, a psychologist named Rovee-Collier ran a simple experiment. She tied a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile above their crib. The babies figured it out quickly. Kick your leg. The mobile moves. They loved it. When she brought those same babies back days later, they remembered. They started kicking immediately. 2-month-olds held that memory for days. 6-month-olds held it for weeks. So the evidence is clear. Baby brains can learn. Baby brains can store memories. Baby brains can recall them. But by the time you're an adult, every single trace is gone. And for decades, scientists had no idea why. The first part of the answer lives deep inside your brain. There's a small, curved structure called the hippocampus. Think of it as your brain's memory engine. It takes your lived experiences, a birthday, a conversation, a rainy afternoon, and turns them into something you can actually replay later. But in babies, this engine is barely running. The connections between the hippocampus and the rest of the brain are still being built. A critical part called the dentate gyrus, which acts as a gateway for new memories, isn't fully wired until age 2 to 4. So your infant brain could make short-term memories. It just couldn't lock them into long-term storage. But here's the thing, that's only half the story. In 2014, 2 neuroscientists in Toronto made a discovery that changed everything. Josselyn and Frankland had a theory. That sounded almost crazy. What if the very process building your brain was also destroying your memories? Here's what they found. In the first years of life, your hippocampus is producing new neurons at a rate that will never happen again. This is called neurogenesis, and it's absolutely essential. Those new brain cells are wiring up everything you'll use for the rest of your life. But every time a new neuron plugs into an existing circuit, it disrupts the connections already there. The connections that were holding your memories. To test this, they experimented on mice. When they increased neurogenesis in adult mice, those mice started forgetting things they had already learned. When they slowed neurogenesis in infant mice, those babies held on to their memories far longer than normal. The conclusion was counterintuitive and brutal. Your baby brain wasn't too weak to hold memories, it was too busy growing. The same explosion of new neurons that built your brain also erased everything stored inside it. Your first experiences weren't lost because they were never saved. They were lost because your brain kept building new rooms and tearing down the old walls in the process. But there's one more layer to this, and it might be the strangest part of all. To form what scientists call autobiographical memory, the kind where you are the main character, you need something most people never think about. You need a self. You need to understand that you exist as a separate person, that things are happening to you specifically. But babies don't have that. Psychologists Mark Howe and Mary Courage discovered this through a simple test. Put a small red dot on a baby's nose. Place them in front of a mirror. Before 18 months, babies treat the reflection like another child. They don't touch their own face. After 18 months, they do. They recognize that the person in the mirror is them. And that moment, the birth of self-awareness, is almost exactly when the earliest autobiographical memories begin forming, which means before that moment, there was no narrator inside your head. No one packaging your experiences into a story. No one called you to remember anything. The final piece is language. Psychologist Catherine Nelson spent years studying how children form lasting memories. Her finding was stunning. Language doesn't just describe your memories. Language builds them. Before you could speak, your experiences were raw sensory data, sounds, textures, light, emotion, with no framework to hold them together. like water with no container. They existed in the moment, then vanished. But once children start speaking, and once parents start having conversations about the past, memory changes completely. Language gives memory a skeleton, and researcher Qi Wang at Cornell proved this goes even deeper. The culture you grow up in literally determines how far back your memory reaches. In Western cultures, where parents narrate their children's experiences, earliest memories start around age 3.5. Among the Maori of New Zealand, with their powerful oral traditions, earliest memories reach back to age 2.5. In some East Asian cultures, where early childhood stories focus less on the individual, first memories start closer to age 4 or later. Your culture didn't just shape who you are, it shaped how far back you can remember. So now I want to ask you something uncomfortable. Go find your oldest baby photo. Look at that face. Is that actually you? The brain that person had is gone. Physically rewired, rebuilt, neuron by neuron, into something completely different. That baby had no continuous sense of self, no language, no narrator, no story being told. Philosophers call this the problem of psychological continuity. If your mind has been completely rebuilt, if every circuit that held those memories was destroyed and replaced, are you actually the same person? Biologically, yes. Same body, same DNA. But psychologically, that baby and the person reading this right now share almost nothing except a body. You didn't grow from that baby. You replaced them. Here's what I think is the most powerful part of all this. Your brain deleted your entire first life. Not because it was broken, not because it failed, but because it was doing something far more important than remembering. It was becoming you. And that process, the process of building the mind you have right now, required destroying the mind that came before. Every human who has ever lived went through this. Every person you've ever loved has a black hole where their earliest years should be. We all began the same way. We all lost the same thing. And none of us remember losing it.